Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be discussing the prophecies that predict the major earthquake in America, the reports from a geologist regarding the latest earthquakes off the western coast of North America, the Doomsday fish that had washed up on the California shores, and important planetary activity. Let's start with the video from a few years ago with Metropolitan Neophytos and what he has to say on this earthquake issue. It is not coincidence that I was reading 2 months ago someone who professed, now I don't want to mention his name, who was saying the following: that the USA would become partial. And this will start in 2024 with the Civil War. This is what he was saying. And the Civil War will begin and will end with a major earthquake. But this won't be just an earthquake. It will be a biblical apocalypse. The rift of St. Andrew in California. That's the San Andreas fault. Nor I will describe this. It's scary. Because Americans are humans too. God bless. But don't forget what the Revelation says. Revelation is not hot air. It is the revelation of the Holy Spirit to the evangelist of love. St. John the theologian, friend of Christ, the beloved student close to him, the evangelist. And the revelation within it says clearly that the time will come when Babylon of the nations will fall. The one who poisoned the souls of people. All the interpreters say that the Great Babylon is America. Never in the history of the nations of the empires we had such poisoning of all the nations because of technology. We didn't have it, not because the Roman Empire was better, and the Chinese further back, the Egyptian or Greek when the Greeks were an empire. Everyone has their passion and their wickedness. So, in that video, the Metropolitan says first there will be the Civil War that starts in 2024. Well, that obviously was pushed back. He also mentions America as the Great Babylon, and he talks about dangerous technology, poisoning the globe with that, I would assume, weapons and other things. I mean, there's a lot of things that it could be. In another video of the Metropolitan, he talks about the 3 things that are going to cause, that have caused the problems, which are big factors in the United States, which is abortion, sexual deviance, sorcery, the occult, black magic type of thing. Those three items, he has said repeatedly that is one of those are the three major problems, let alone everything else with the wars, the regime change, and the invasions, and that has caused destruction, mass deaths, famine, etc. So he is saying that America is at the forefront of all of this, and that's why it's considered the Great Babylon, which is why it'll pay the highest price. Now I'm going to show you the geologist's report.
Most likely range, and I think it's more likely to occur in Northern California if it does versus Central or Southern California, specifically looking at the San Francisco Bay Area. And there are a lot of reasons for this. The primary one is the fact that we just had a magnitude 7 earthquake up in the Yukon, border of Alaska and Canada, with a ton of aftershocks, hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes. And just a couple days ago, we had a magnitude 6.5 that struck Mexico near the city of Acapulco. Well, California is directly in between the two, and we often see earthquakes follow that sort of progression where they will fill in the gaps.
Okay, so the first thing the geologist shows us is the possibility of an earthquake, judging by those percentages that most likely would be in the San Francisco area. Those percentages aren't really that high, but I think he's going to be talking about all these factors together, which we'll get into. He's saying that it's because of the two earthquakes, one up north by the Yukon, North Alaska, and then the one down in Acapulco area in Mexico. A 6.7 or something, and then up there it was like a 7 in the Alaska area, and then there you have the California area with not too much happening yet. And he's saying that this is going to affect this middle section, the California coast, perhaps even Washington, Oregon, but eventually that's going to be hit because of how the earthquakes are working and the tectonic plates. He also talks about I can't remember the word. It's basically the opposite across the globe. So if you have a earthquake down in the southern part of the country, like down near the coast, the southern coast of Africa, it matched up with like the one in Mexico. So I forget the word for that. He has a word for it. I hadn't heard about it until I saw his show. Those things are important as well. So he's saying, this is important to look at because of the activity that's going on, to the north and to the south of the American coast right there, especially, he said, California.
This is very rare. We just had a doomsday fish wash up off the coast of Monterey. And these are known as doomsday fish because of Japanese folklore and legend associating these oarfish washing up with high magnitude earthquakes and tsunamis. So basically really powerful natural disasters. And they hang out really deep at depth. And the idea is that there's some sort of change to the earth that's occurring in the deep oceans, potentially based off of changing electric field or electromagnetic signals. We know that sometimes before, during, and after high magnitude earthquakes, we get these sort of electromagnetic signals that are generated and released. And so if these fish are very sensitive to them, which makes sense, that would drive them to the surface, and they die once they're at the surface. So you don't see them there normally because, well, they're going to die if they go to the surface. So on December 30th of 2025, scuba diver Ted Judah was out in Monterey Bay, clear waters, and he saw an oarfish. So this is very, very rare, and I take these very seriously because back in May and June of 2025, right before the magnitude 8.8 megaquake that struck off the coast of Kamchatka, Russia, one of the biggest earthquakes ever observed, only behind 5 magnitude 9 plus events that occurred in the past 125 years, we saw tons of oarfish washing up around the oceans in that area. Australia, New Zealand, India, other locations. And so there is something to this folklore. And case in point, we can look back to 2024 when 2 doomsday fish washed up in California. And look at the date there. That is November 15th for this article by SF Gate. For the second time in less than 4 months, an oarfish washed ashore in San Diego. And so this occurs every now and then. There have been oarfish that wash up every now and then in California, San Diego, Monterey, etc. But again, the date for this is November 15th, 2024. So going 4 months before then up to that moment. And well, let us look at this. If you remember, we had a magnitude 7 earthquake offshore Cape Mendocino at the Triple Junction on the 5th of December, 2024. Here is the map for that. So we can see that this was a big earthquake. We can put on our tectonic faults, our U.S. faults, and you see the San Andreas here go up, and then where it starts to bend and you get this triple junction between plates, we had this big magnitude 7. So those oarfish in 2024 technically were a temporal precursor to this high magnitude earthquake, which occurred in the global sense just nearby, right? That's not that far away. And also for 2025 with the magnitude 8.8 megaquake, we also saw these oarfish washing up all around the globe. But there are many other data points to get into, but that is definitely one that I consider. I think there's a lot of wisdom in these legends and folklore, and that we should be working off of our historic record and the clues that our ancestors left us.
Okay, so here he's talking about the oarfish, the doomsday fish, as its folklore calls it, that had washed up on the shores of California just recently, he's saying. They are deep in the water. They're not on the surface. They're way down. But because of the shifting of the Earth, as he said, it could be the electromagnetic stuff and all that the fish are disturbed and they come up to the surface and they die. But he's basically saying that these fish, according to what he was showing, were precursors to large earthquakes, like the one he just talked about this past July. I think it was in July, the one off of the coast of Russia. These type of oarfish were seen on the shores at about maybe a couple months before the big earthquake hit. So he sees this as a sign of precursor to a larger earthquake to come.
Now, another very important factor to add into this is the fact that we have a very significant planetary alignment that is unfolding as we speak. It's active right now. We see 2 of the planets in that planetary alignment thanks to our coronagraph view, our view of the sun, which puts a disk over the sun and including disk, so we can see the solar wind and solar storms that come off of the sun. When we do that, we can also see the planets. And so here we see Venus on the other side of the sun performing a superior conjunction with the sun. That goes exact on the 6th of January. Well, what's this right there? That is Mars, also on the other side of the sun, performing its superior conjunction, though it'll be just a couple days behind the superior conjunction of Venus. And because Mars is going this way, Venus is going that way, well, they are also going to meet up and do a conjunction themselves. So that is quite significant, but there's more to that planetary alignment than just what Venus and Mars are doing. We can look at it right here with our solar system scope application, and here is the planetary alignment that's active. We see Mars, Venus, Mercury is also right there as well. There's Earth. There's Jupiter. So we have Jupiter opposition on the 10th of January. Earth was just at its closest to the sun on the 3rd of January, so about 0.985 astronomical units away. The average distance is 1. And we see this synodic cycle here with Mars and Venus at once every 6.6 year cycle, or about 2,338 days. So this is a very significant planetary alignment. Last time we saw this planetary alignment was 1936. They do not occur that often. They are quite rare. But there is more to this than just that. We also have Neptune and Saturn here performing their great conjunction. And they did their great conjunction in reference to the Sun on December 13th. I think it was the 12th, 13th of December. And they will do it late February with the Earth. We have harmonic aspects also at play. Pluto and Uranus, 60 degrees to both these planets, 120 degrees to each other. So the entire solar system right now is arranged geometrically with very precise angles, alignments, and harmonic aspects. This is not common, and it's definitely something to consider because we see high magnitude earthquakes often hitting during these precise planetary alignments. Let's go back in time. So we will go back to around the time of the megaquake. Okay, that was again July 29th, 2025, magnitude 8.5. And back in July, or mid-July, is when we nearly had an exact conjunction between Neptune and Saturn here as viewed from Earth geocentrically. This is only 13 arc minutes apart. And there's 360 degrees in a circle. An arc minute is a 1/60th division of a degree. So very, very, very close to being exactly conjunct back in July. They will do that conjunction, as I said earlier, in February of 2026. Okay, so this is mid-July. Look at the planetary geometry that started forming. Here it is on the 29th of July. We see Mars, Earth, Saturn, and Neptune in a line, and that really went exact a little bit later in August, as you see right there. Very nice alignment in early August, but that alignment was still very active when that megaquake occurred. And this harmonic aspect with Uranus and Pluto, with these two outer planets, was all still in effect at that time. This is a minor grand trine configuration. So the last time we had the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, which was July of 2025, because there's differential orbital velocities between the planets. So Earth is rotating around, so it makes it look like they're going conjunct, and then there may be a triple conjunction sequence. This time we only get one exact conjunction. That's in February 2026, but the almost went conjunct in July. We had the magnitude 8.8 megaquake. Have that coming up again. If we go forward here, we'll see this in February. We see that geocentrically they are conjunct right there, about the 20th, 22nd of February, and this is very important. Let's add on another layer, okay? So that in and of itself is like, okay, we should pay attention. And we can go further back in time to see how this planetary geometry is important, because back in 1989, we had the Loma Prieta earthquake, a magnitude 6.9. That was specifically on October 18th. And so what was happening back in 1989? Well, let's find out. We can grab Saturn here and drag him back to 1989. And so we'll see this slowly appear right here. And look at that. There is another Saturn-Neptune conjunction that is occurring at the same time. Specifically on the 13th of November is when that went really exact. We can get that right here. The 13th of November was when that was exact. You see that Venus was also in that planetary geometry. Uranus just nearby. Very significant planetary alignment. We also have the dwarf planet Ceres participating. There were two conjunctions prior to that. This was a triple conjunction sequence. There was also one on March 3rd and also June 24th of 1989. This was the final conjunction, just like we have the one and only final conjunction coming up in February. So, and we had the Loma Prieta quake occur just before that on the 18th of October. So there's too many parallels now to ignore, effectively. When you look at this, this is a one-off, an n equals 1. Maybe there's other examples going further back in time that I'm unaware of, But the fact that we had a big, sizable earthquake at 6.9 when we had this planetary alignment in the sky, the same one that we have right now, gives me pause. And then we have the Doomsday fish washing up in Monterey Bay just recently. We have this antipodal earthquake activity. We have the earthquake clustering on both sides of the west coast of the United States. And, well, it definitely makes you think.
Here he ends with showing how these planet alignments, they don't happen all the time, but they do happen, obviously. But the one that he said is kind of rare is the one that he said that comes all together, that's supposed to happen in around February 21st, 22nd of this year, that could culminate to a large earthquake. Fascinating. I always found astronomy interesting, by the way, when I was in grade school, along with oceanography. But this is very fascinating, how the planets will align for certain things, how that happens in the cosmos. And, I can see that as a really, God works all over the place, and you can definitely see it in the universe, in the space, in the planets. So I thought that was really interesting. Basically, he's saying this alignment, he's saying, could come about in February 21st, 22nd. And then, the earthquake, the large one, to come around that time. Okay, so we're going to go on to another prophecy with all this other information we just got from the elder who wanted to remain anonymous. He had a couple of prophecies on what happens with America with this earthquake. I'm going to bring this back up from the Holy Wisdom channel just as a reminder. He said, in 2012, he said, half of America will be engulfed by the sea, with even the lands of the indigenous people disappearing beneath the waters as the San Andreas Fault ruptures. Strange occurrences described as signs and monsters will extend all the way to Canada, leaving uncertainty as to whether Canada itself will remain above water. Whatever remains will be under the gaze of King John. Then he says in October 13, 2012, a great evil is being prepared on a global scale, an attempt to cause a massive earthquake. However, those behind it will fail, as the very place where they plan to unleash devastation will be the one to sink. Okay? So that to me sounds like it's the Americans trying to modify weather to bring about the earthquake in whatever region they think they want to disrupt. I think it was probably, that's how I took it. And instead it's going to come back on us. And it could be, use of certain weapons that can cause tremors in the earth. I went over that ages ago when I was looking at modification of weather and certain weapons that we have that can cause tremors in the earth. So this is what I understood what he meant in this particular portion. And then let me go on from there. It says, and then a little over 6 months later, June 7, 2013, he said, America, the drowned man is not counted, for he is already dead, which is really chilling and disturbing. And then we go to 2020, and he gets more detailed, okay, more clarified. His vision is more clarified. So he says, half of America will be engulfed by the sea, with even the lands of the indigenous people disappearing beneath the waters as the San Andreas Fault ruptures, described as signs and monsters, will extend all the way to Canada. I don't know as to whether Canada itself will remain above water or succumb to the depths. Okay, that was 2020. Then June 8th, 2020, he says the fall of a great American empire will commence with a widespread uprising and will ultimately be completed by a devastating earthquake along the San Andreas Fault. So, he's talking about an uprising. Now that could be maybe what Metropolitan Neophytos was talking about with the Civil War-ish thing. I don't know. But this is about an uprising, he's saying. And this was in 2020, I think it said. The thing about that, though, is that, yeah, he said that in June, an uprising. And then you think, oh, perhaps it was maybe that uprising was the George Floyd protest. But no, because nothing happened after that. Now, there's an uprising going on right now. But let's see if he says if there's something going on after that. So he says, yeah, in 2021, terrible events will unfold. He said this in 2021, igniting widespread unrest among the people. Yes, even a civil war. Now here he is saying the Civil War issue that I think Metropolitan Neophytos was talking about. He's saying this in 2021, so conflicts will erupt. So this uprising obviously it's after 2020, and I found that very interesting. And then of course it culminates with that large earthquake after all this uprising and turmoil is happening in our country, which I don't know about you, but I've seen this escalation of that the past few years, but it just keeps getting worse, obviously. Now my last piece I'm going to show you is the one that the Holy Wisdom did on the 2026-2027, the tribulation years and when the Great War will come. This is important to kind of pinpoint exactly where Christopher, who does that channel, believes that he's putting the timeline out there and when he thinks this major earthquake will hit the U.S. I think it's important to kind of try to figure that out. So I'm going to go to that. So here, this is after the Russo-Turkish War had started, and then it's a point when all of these countries are coming to settle around the area of Constantinople. So it's like the NATO is getting ready, to strike with Russia, to battle Russia. But here it says, so they're going to begin a war such as one of the, so they will get together in the seventh will begin a war such as one has never happened before, and they will be very swift in invading both the thoroughfares and the narrow streets of the seven-hilled city. So that's the Constantinople area. I remember another elder saying, be prepared, go flee to the mountains, don't be in these particular villages. That was under Elder Joseph of Adiputi's prophecy, but I think also the elder of Agafara, I think it was Avakara, I can't remember, but it was that one with the road, the E65 road issue. So it says around this time when this is happening, while they're going on their way to Constantinople, around this time an immense natural disaster is expected to strike the United States, triggering a profound shift in global balance of power. This event will serve as a catalyst for geopolitical realignment, shaking the foundations of existing structures as the world reels from its impact. Preparations intensify at the first battle at Constantinople. So it will happen before the final battle in Constantinople is what this is saying, what he is saying in his video, which means that I don't know how much contribution the U.S. will be, although they say the U.S. will win against Russia in this. How many troops are actually going to be, the American troops are actually going to be there after that devastating earthquake, right? How much power will we actually have when it says that we're going to lose all that in this devastating earthquake? But anyway, it seems like it comes while they're preparing over the winter and moving towards Constantinople, and it's I remember hearing it was like another crusade. It was just terrible. Many people would die in that path, which that path is the Ignatian Road and the E65 that he mentions in another video. So he says the time that the Russo-Turkish war would happen in around September, could be later, of 2026. Then in the winter, they're preparing to go down on those roads to get to Constantinople. I'm not quite sure why they're all going there, but whatever, we'll probably figure that later. And so if they're doing that, then they're going, oops, here comes my cat, always interrupting my so then they're going to so that'd be the winter. But he basically said that the great battle would probably happen in spring or summer of 2027. So there's one aspect that I want to add to all of this information regarding, because with what's happening with the earthquakes and the geologists saying, well, February is going to be a major earthquake. Well, it may not be it may be a major earthquake, but it may not, it doesn't sound like it's going to be the earthquake that's going to cause America to become partial. It may be a precursor earthquake to a larger one later, like later, months later. That could be it. Now, all of this is just, we don't know exactly when this is going to happen. It's just a estimate. It's an interpretation. It's a guess of what we think, how these things are going to line up, is the way I understand Christopher, what he was doing. I'm trying to bring it all together so that you can see what I'm seeing. And also that one other factor that wasn't mentioned, and I'm going to try to set that up, is also, well, let me start with the 2026-2027 timeline. He said that the Israel-Iran war, the second part 2, would start probably in January or February of this year. Well, we can see that's actually seems to be going to happen within the next several weeks to a month, it seems to us, if I've heard through analysts and everything. Then you have, let's not forget, now, there was a blood moon in September, okay, of 2025, and we don't know the timeline, the amount of time between the blood moon where the one elder had said everything will commence after that. Could have been in that, it could be that, and it's possible that was when it was the kickoff with the blood moon issue. But it could be the March 3rd and 4th of this year that could be the blood moon that will culminate we'll go get everything started with this phase of the war and the final phase. Then you remember that the E65 is completed. That road in Greece will be completed, which connects with the Ignatian Road. That is what the NATO is going to use to go to Constantinople. Is supposed to be completed between April and June of 2026 this year. So everything kind of comes together if you look at it like that. Everything kind of just, it makes more sense when you bring it all together so you can understand how things happen. It was mentioned in the 2026-27 tribulation, of course, the Greece-Turkey thing, the thing about the tensions rising there, which it is. And then there's the issue with Thrace, which I've looked into. I will do another video just on the Greek-Turkey tensions and the Thrace issue. But now I have all this information I wanted to share with you regarding the earthquake issue for the U.S., and how this all plays into the timeline. I hope this was really helpful for you, hopefully informative. This is just my interpretation and understanding. Again, as always said, things can be pushed back. Things can be altered a bit through our prayers of repentance. So let's keep doing that. And thanks so much for watching. Please share your thoughts below on what you think on all this. and have a great day.